How are you doing? It's really become my default greeting, whether it's an email or a phone call or starting out a Zoom meeting. It's just kind of checking in on people. And I wanted to take a pause this morning as I was kind of thinking through what's going on today, what's going on for kind of next week as I build out my plan. Just wanted to take a moment and just ask you how you're doing. Check in on everybody that kind of tunes in and see how you all are doing out there. And I'm encouraging you to give me some feedback. I know right now as we're all isolated in our home offices, there's actually really kind of a need for community. I know we spend a lot of time on Slack. You're probably connected to people through email, but sometimes it really feels like we're not connected. So I encourage you, go ahead and shoot me an email, bill.rice@kaleidico.com, and tell me how you're doing. Tell me a little bit about what was the best part of your week, maybe some things that you're thankful for, and of course, any challenges or things that you're thinking about. The good news is we've reached Friday, but probably for most of us, our brains and even the work is not really shutting down over the weekend. So just taking a moment to really kind of document those things, whether it's in a journal or again, shooting me an email, I think can be really helpful. I know this morning I've kind of taken inventory of the things that were good and that I'm thankful for, and even some of the challenges that I'm working through. So as for me, of course, first and foremost, it's always important to keep perspective. I am super thankful that all of my family right now is healthy and safe and provided for. So that's always kind of the ultimate perspective. All the business and work and economic factors, all those can kind of be worked out as long as we have our family intact. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful for our team. Our team is just hustling. Everything that is happening in our business is really a surge, which may be a little bit counterintuitive. I want to talk about that in a second, but really surging as our clients are needing to shift what they're working on and what we're working on into more urgent priorities. We're doing redesigns to be able to create websites or position websites so that they can communicate faster. All of the different information and changing operations that are happening, alert features, landing pages, all those sorts of things, even whole home pages needing to be redesigned to talk specifically to what's going on in the market. And then, of course, content. We're scrapping whole editorial calendars and repositioning them to be able to talk in the context of what's actually going on now. And then a whole bunch of email copywriting. Obviously, that's become an important means of communication. That's where a lot of us are sort of networked together. And interestingly enough, that's becoming more popular. People are opening at a higher rate. They're actually clicking through at a higher rate because they're eager for communication and to understand what's going on. So all of those things are going on, and that's kind of the inventory that I'm taking. Would love to hear where you're focused and how you're planning for the future. One of the things that we're doing in particular, and this is another area that I'd love to get your feedback, is we're actually building guides for CMOs and marketing directors on crisis marketing and crisis sales and marketing. There are a whole bunch of things that you need to be doing differently and be thinking about. And I've already published one of these, and inside of that I really kind of take you at a high level. This is just for CMOs and marketing directors in general. At a high level, I took you through the mental model that I use to think through crisis marketing and sales retention. And this is something that I've done, unfortunately, several times through 9/11, through the financial crisis. And so I've got a mental model that I always work through in these crisis situations to make sure that we're positioned for sustainability and for operational kind of continuation, and also to position for the future. So I have that, and then what I'm actually doing now is building out those guides for the industries that we serve. So mortgage lenders, insurance, our law firms, senior living communities actually, as well as emerging tech startups. Startups kind of have an interesting place in the market. The good news there is I've talked to all my startups, the investments are still coming in, and they're continuing to kind of sustain their hope and optimism in building those startups. So all of that is intact. But there are specific things that CMOs and marketing directors of all those different industries should be doing specific to their industry. So for instance, mortgage lenders and insurance, there is a kind of an elongated process of taking an application, getting that application processed and approved, and then ultimately issuing out that policy or that mortgage. And there, in these times of volatility, there are all kinds of things that can be changing inside of that sales pipeline that can be either positive or negative. So it's really important to have that retention program in place. So here's some of the things that are going to be in these industry specific guides, and I would love to get your feedback if there are other things that I should cover. But initially, as I map and outline these, this is what I'm looking to do right now. How to monitor and predict market changes. This is super important. How do you look at your market? How do you understand how consumer and business behaviors are changing? And how do you actually address that change? How do you just kind of keep track of it? And then you make some predictions as to the way things will be in the short term, and then what of those short-term changes will actually turn into sort of persistent new parts of the market. Number 2 is how to build that pivot plan for business sustainability. This, like I said, this is kind of like a startup. Your business will change as a result of this crisis. So how do we start to develop those pivot plans so that we make sure that our business continues to sustain in a good way and come out on the other side of this in an even better and stronger way? The third point is how to create sales pipeline retention programs. This is so important. So often we get distracted by the crisis and maybe even get overwhelmed by it and neglect the fact that we have to keep that sales pipeline intact. That's our future revenue, and we have to move that through the crisis. We cannot neglect that. So I'm going to talk to you about how to build out those programs and give you some examples of the programs that we're currently building. And then last but not least, and again, this is another thing that gets kind of mentally neglected in a crisis, is really how to identify and pursue new opportunities. And a lot of times we kind of shut this part of our brain off because we think, oh, it's being opportunistic, but you can see it happening in the market right now. Walmart's blowing up, Amazon's blowing up as they kind of move and support new needs in the market, which are ultimately opportunities, or sort of door-side delivery, changes in logistics. Ultimately, our manufacturers are kind of shifting some of the things that they manufacture in order to support the healthcare crisis. So there are all kinds of things, work that needs to be done, market needs that need to be met, and those ultimately are new opportunities. So how do we look at those, and how do we move to those new opportunities? So what else? What else do you need to know? What other challenges are you facing? We want to be helpful in this moment. We're documenting everything that we're doing for clients, and we want to issue as much of that out into the market as we can. We're doing daily content to support all of you. So I hope you will continue to tune in. And most importantly, stay healthy. Have a great Friday, and we will talk to you on Monday.